one of the weirdest nicknames I've heard in fighting. There's people have some strange nicknames at times, but the Lemon Killer. What do you even make of that? What is that about?
I don't even know what that means, but I'm gonna squeeze him like a lemon on the day we fight, and he's gonna pop.
Only on SportsGrid.
We're going to get rid of all the badness, if you will, over the past few decades for the Raiders and set yourself up for the future. It's a horrible job to take if you expect to win, but it's not a bad paying gig, so go ahead and take it.
With an owner in Mark Davis who has continued to make bad decision after bad decision. Does Pete Carroll leave a culture behind that Joe Brady in 2 to 3 years takes over?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
He did nothing for 5 weeks. So he's becoming his brother. So I don't want to hear about how great T.J. Watt is with his 0 playoff wins. And he's the first guy to admit it. He comes right out and says, I've never won a playoff game. I don't matter. All right, at least we all know who the best player on the team is. It's George Pickens. If you don't believe that, well, then screw you, too.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
We'll see if they get McCain back. Kelly Oubre, Yabusele's been good. Caleb Martin's a defensive specialist. Andre Drummond can still give you, almost a double-double at any point. I can't go south on this team. And now you're giving it to me at 2-1 to make the playoffs? To be in the Final 8? Folks, give me the Philadelphia 76ers to make the playoffs at plus 210.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Happy Monday morning, the day after, as we call it, the AFC and NFC Championship games. A familiar face or faces headed back to the Super Bowl. We'll tell you all about what happened yesterday, just in case for some reason you weren't watching pro football yesterday. We'll recap it for you. Also, we'll get into the very latest with our guest contributors here on the show. In sports betting, Pat Evans will join us from Legal Sports Report. Of course, always guest contributors from Sporting News to dive into what we can expect with the upcoming Super Bowl. We'll also give you the new point spread for the Super Bowl in New Orleans. And don't forget our exclusive coverage here on SportsGrid of the Super Bowl in New Orleans starts next week. So stay on the grid for that. This weekend, just the Pro Bowl. So naturally, we'll dive into some other topics, coaching, and of course, talk a little college basketball and NBA as well. But let's get started with last night's result in one of the epic games you'll ever see in an AFC Championship game, one that, as expected, did come straight down to the wire, point spread included. They're back again. The Kansas City Chiefs are headed to another Super Bowl with an opportunity to become the only team in the history of the NFL to win 3 straight. They defeat the Bills 32-29 in this game. Razor-thin margins in all of it, including a play down the stretch in the end. Josh Allen chased out of the pocket, throws a ball to Dalton Kincaid, or really to nobody, but throws a ball. Dalton Kincaid almost came up with it. That would have potentially given Buffalo a chance to tie the game or maybe even take the lead, but it was not to be. The Chiefs closed it out late. They're headed to another Super Bowl, and as Patrick Mahomes, of course, is headed to history with the possibility of winning 3 in a row, and he talked about winning it in front of the fans last night.
It's just so hard to get to the Super Bowl, and I don't take it for granted. And to be able to do it again at Arrowhead was special. I mean, last year it was awesome. You get there and you win it, but you're at a different stadium. And then being able to win it at Arrowhead, and then you get that trophy on that stage, and you look around, and there's not a seat empty. It is a special place, and I'm glad that I get to be a part of Chiefs Kingdom and here in Kansas City because these moments that I'll have for the rest of my life.
What did you say it took to get here?
Yeah, it's a long process, and it takes everybody. It takes every single person on the team, and you saw that tonight. If it was special teams, if it was offense, if it was defense, everybody had their role in this game, and that was a great football team that we played. And so for us to go through the season and win the games the way that we won them, I'm proud of the team. But like you said, we're not to the ultimate goal yet, and this will be a great challenge for us with Philadelphia. And so I'm excited for the guys preparing and get to New Orleans and put up our best shot.
On the flip side, Josh Allen comes one game short of the Super Bowl yet again, as has been the story in the Chiefs era the last 10 years with the Buffalo Bills and Chiefs facing off against each other. Pretty despondent Allen after the game talking about the loss.
It's not fun. But to beat the champs, you gotta to be the champs, you gotta beat the champs, and we didn't do it tonight. Yeah, they gave a good look. Didn't see anything in my first cadence. We were sliding left. Corner came. Yeah. They're the best, but we just want to get it done, and we haven't been able to.
Josh, when you get the ball back down 3, how did you feel about the situation?
Felt good, relaxed. We just, gotta execute better.
Josh, how much does the fact that it's been this specific team that's
Well, they've ended a lot of team seasons too. And it's a good squad. They had a good plan tonight, and again, they made more play than we did.
Really close finish there. Very exciting right down to the end. I'll be curious to see what the ratings are for that one. All right, the Cinderella story for the Washington Commanders officially comes to a screeching halt in Philadelphia. They just couldn't stop the Eagles, couldn't stop Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts looked like the Hurts of old. 55-23 the final. Was close for about 2 quarters, and then the Eagles ended up pulling away. Barkley, several touchdowns in this game. Hurts, several touchdowns in this game. And it was a pretty definitive win as the Eagles will now head back to the Super Bowl to take on the Kansas City Chiefs and their former head coach, Andy Reid. But needless to say, the head coach currently of the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, super excited to be headed back to the spot, but this time looking for a win.
Yeah, this game is about overcoming adversity. There's going to be good plays in the game. There's going to be bad plays in the game. There's going to be good moments in a season. There's going to be bad moments in a season. And it's about overcoming and embracing the adversity, because really what we've talked about as a team is like adversity. We've all had to have adversity to be in this moment as where we are right now. And so adversity is what makes you who you are. And it's been the story of, the 2023 to the 2024 Eagles is as bad as feeling we had as how last year ended. I think it makes you who you are. These guys are hungry, and we got one more to go.
What was your message to the team in the locker room?
I don't know. Everyone was kind of flowing in. It was just basically what the schedule was. Kind of what our message has been all year is tough, detailed together. Mentally and physically tough, detailed with our fundamentals, detailed with being on the same page, detailed with that, and then together, right? Because, again, it's not the best groups of individuals that wins. You got to become a team. We got one more to go.
And the Chiefs currently a 1.5-point favorite over the Eagles in the upcoming Super Bowl, total 49.5. Rest of the news in the National Football League, a new head coach for the Dallas Cowboys, as was announced over the weekend. It is Brian Schottenheimer, goes from offensive coordinator to the head coach of the Cowboys. The Seahawks have hired Clint Kubiak as their new offensive coordinator. He was with the Minnesota Vikings in 2021 and the Saints this past season. Darren Mogi leaves the Broncos. He joins coach Aaron Glenn as the new general manager. He is 39 years old and now the 3rd youngest GM in the National Football League. And the Bears have hired Declan Doyle, Broncos tight end coach, as their offensive coordinator. Of course, Ben Johnson will be doing a lot of the offensive game planning, I would guess, going into next season. All right, let's get to some college football as well. Penn State is finalizing a deal for Ohio State's defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles. He'll agree to a 3-year contract that will pay him almost $3.1 million per season. So shift in the Big Ten, no doubt. Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback of Colorado, headed to the NFL. Not sure if he is going to throw at the Combine in Indianapolis next month, but he's been meeting with teams including Tennessee, Cleveland, and New York. We'll see where he ends up. All-American safety Xavier Watts from Notre Dame is entering the NFL draft, and also a recruit ends up flipping. Brady Smigel, 36th recruit for 26, takes away his FSU commit. Looks like he could be headed to Ohio State. No word on that just yet. In the WNBA, a pretty massive trade ahead of their trade deadline. Kelsey Plum was traded to the Sparks. The Aces land Jewel Lloyd in a 3-team deal. The Aces get Lloyd, the Sparks get Plum and a second-round pick, and the Storm get a number 2 pick and a 2026 first-rounder with another player as well. SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the most dominant player going right now in the NBA. 33 points, and they beat the Portland Trailblazers, did OKC 118-108. Their record is now 37-8 on the season. Also, Yusef Nurkic says he and their head coach, Mike Budenholzer, do not have a good relationship. We'll see what his status is moving forward. Some talk he could get traded ahead of the deadline, which is coming up next week. In baseball, a trade yesterday, and if you're reading the tea leaves, could lead to some hot stove movement as well. Astros freed up some money potentially to re-sign Alex Bregman. They've traded Ryan Presley, their closer from a couple of years ago before they got Josh Hader, to the Chicago Cubs. He was set to make $14 million this upcoming season. Alex Bregman still unsigned. We'll see if that leads to a signing, and maybe Jose Altuve moving to the outfield. And also Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, at the Mets Fest this weekend, meeting with some of the fans and doing some media stuff, said that the process of getting Alonso back in New York has been exhausting. There's been a lot of discussion as to whether or not Alonso would accept a 3-year deal with some opt-outs with the Mets. Apparently not. We'll see what happens with Alonso. Word is he could make a decision this week, although I thought that last week and the week before too. Coming up next, Vinnie Iyer will join us courtesy of the Sporting News, and we'll talk about what we can expect to see with the Buffalo Bills and what's next for them. KC heads to the Super Bowl. They'll take on Philly. We'll have more for you next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Is it just a matter of his contract, his age? I mean, usually things like this get fixed pretty quickly, but this one is not fixed, and now it's just super uncomfortable.
The opportunity or the idea of getting another team involved adds more complication to the situation, and it doesn't seem like a resolution is anywhere in sight, but the more suspensions come in, the more it's clear that the saga is over, or his time there is over.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Vinnie Iyer locked in, watching the NFL on Sunday, and certainly the outcomes went in favor of the favorites, fair to say. And now the question is, will the favorite win the Super Bowl? Let's bring in Vinnie Iyer, and the Chiefs are set to try and do something that's never been done before. The one thing, Vinnie, I do want to mention, it was sort of bizarre last night during the broadcast that Jim Nantz kept mentioning Pat Riley and the three-peat. You can't say three-peat? I mean, I just did twice. I did not understand what was going on there at the end of the game. The Chiefs are trying to get the three-peat. Do we get fined for that? I don't get it. What will happen after that? Can they not make shirts or something? I don't understand the whole thing. What was going on? It was so weird yesterday. But needless to say, that was the epic performance. Honestly, from both teams, it could have gone either way. Kincaid catches the ball, Buffalo kicks a field goal. Who knows? I was not happy with the outcome, honestly. I really wanted to see Buffalo and some new blood in the Super Bowl, but getting the Chiefs there is probably the second best option.
Yeah, I mean, it was right there for the Bills. I mean, they complained more about the calls, but who doesn't these days against the Chiefs, right? Calls that they didn't get. But the game was right there for the taking. I mean, they held the Chiefs to a field goal, got the sack they needed. The ball was in Josh Allen's hands. Everything was right there to move down the field and at least tie the game, right? And they didn't do it. So, I mean, they had their opportunities. I mean, you have to credit the Chiefs' defense for stepping up at certain points. They really contained Josh Allen as a runner. I mean, they were fortunate he didn't lose that fumble on the drive where they were stopped on fourth down later. So some breaks went against the Chiefs, but in the end, they didn't complain. They just turned around, executed what they needed to do. And look, you can look at the calls and things, bang, bang on either side. Clearly, there were some misses on both sides, but it happens in every playoff game. But what I was most impressed with, Patrick Mahomes was in complete control. This is the first time all season that they had scored more than 30 points in a game. And they did it on the biggest stage, and it was because Mahomes was all over this. I mean, he knew he had to take off and run. First time he's ever had 2 rushing touchdowns in a game. I mean, he just realized the moment a little bit more than Josh Allen and made those plays that counted where Allen could not execute. And look, it just comes down to that. You can look at Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Allen made more plays and less mistakes. You can look at Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. Sometimes it just comes down to the other guy is better. And with Mahomes, he's just been better than everybody else for a good 3 seasons now.
Yeah, I just can't see how anybody could have anything to complain with the exception maybe of that one call. You're right, it was close. Yeah. But, those things happen in the course of the NFL games. Mahomes' props, in fact, were really close as far as the passing touchdown and the passing yards. He did rush for 46 yards, so he flew over that one and did rush for 2 touchdowns as well. Buffalo, as far as Josh Allen is concerned, I mean, I guess, he seemed pretty defeated, honestly, Vinny, and I guess I would feel that way, too, if I was in that spot. Is there something the Bills can do next year to get over the hump? It feels like no. Like, as long as the Chiefs are just the Chiefs and are winning enough games to play in their home stadium, then the Chiefs are probably going to beat the Bills again next year or somebody else. I mean, it's close to a dynasty as I've seen since, I guess, the Patriots, right?
Yeah, I mean, it actually could be better than the Patriots in the end because I don't see any signs of these guys slowing down. I mean, you could see Travis Kelce retired. Andy Reid might want to get off this run here, but I don't see it happening in the immediate future right now. So when you look at the Chiefs, I think, again, their execution, staying one step ahead of the opponents, seeming to know what they're doing. They were well prepared for Josh Allen running. It was just not but a fluke that they were able to stop them in some key situations. They were prepared for that, and they did a good job knowing what the Bills had to do to win the game. They were okay sometimes if those things broke through, like the big plays to Matt Collins, knowing that you're going to give up something in a game. It just don't give up the things that are going to totally break your back. And I think the Bills struggled with that. They gave up big return. They give up some big plays. They had the injury early to Christian Benford. That was it. I mean, they just picked on that matchup all game long. And maybe another thing is don't help the Chiefs get a speedy wide receiver in the first round of the draft that can come back to burn you in a game. And that's what the Bills did back in April.
Definitely.
Don't let them have the draft pick they want. Don't make a trade with them because it's going to come back to bite you. And Xavier Worthy certainly did that in this game.
Yeah, Worthy had 2 good games against Buffalo, scored twice in the games that they played against each other. And I mean, I guess you have to kind of think that back, as a general manager when you're sort of helping another team. But in the moment, it doesn't feel like it's anything. But indeed, that was what happened when you think about it. Meanwhile, the Eagles are headed back to another Super Bowl. And, Vinny, I mean, there's not really a lot of talk about this. And maybe I'm biased because he's a buddy of mine. But, Howie Roseman at some point, his contract's going to be up, Vinny. I don't know when that is. But, man, if he's not the highest paid GM in the NFL, I don't know who will be. It seems like every single move this guy makes ends up working out. We poke fun at him because he's making a million moves and a million trades. Why are you taking this D lineman? What are you doing getting Barkley? You already have, Swift and some other running backs. And here they are, headed to the Super Bowl again. Vic Fangio leading the way this time. Their defense was fantastic. Yes, Washington made a lot of mistakes. But, Vinny, Philly caused a lot of those mistakes. These balls weren't just laid on the ground. They were punched out. So credit to the offense and the defense. I think they'll be formidable in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's not just him, but Nick Sirianni. Look, he didn't have the right coordinators. He had the brain drain with Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon leaving after their last Super Bowl, and then they didn't replace them adequately. But then Kellen Moore becomes available. Vic Fangio becomes available. You get those guys, and then you have the foundation for Howie Roseman to say, look, Kellen Moore wants to run the ball a lot. Let's get a durable running back. We hope Saquon Barkley wasn't all that healthy in his previous stops, but he also wasn't as motivated, right? With the Giants, know that they were going nowhere. But with the Eagles, you know they're going somewhere. You know you're going to get elite blocking. You know you have Jalen Hurts to play with in the backfield, so you're going to be motivated. Then just all these defensive moves, Zach Bond. I mean, just getting him, his Saints special teamer, into being an all-pro linebacker. So all that stuff, and then the drafting, and Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, then all those Georgia guys they got, all paying off on defense. So, yeah, Howie Roseman, again, they have ebbs and flows like any team, but now they have that foundation, I think, to be consistently successful.
Yeah. Real quick, just to tie the bow on Daniels. I mean, I think everybody felt bad for him watching that game. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. The guy just kept, giving the ball to his guys. They kept fumbling it, turning it over, kickoffs, etc. Finished with an incredible run for Jaden Daniels, and I would expect Washington to be very active in trying to get this team to win a Super Bowl now because they were that close, one game away. Let's take a look at the line here. Chiefs taking on the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Opened up at -1.5, Vinny. Feels fair, correct?
Yep, I feel the Chiefs again. I mean, I have to see it to believe it to go the other way.
All right, thanks, Vinny.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Is it just a matter of his contract, his age? I mean, usually things like this get fixed pretty quickly, but this one is not fixed, and now it's just super uncomfortable.
The opportunity or the idea of getting another team involved adds more complication to the situation, and it doesn't seem like a resolution is anywhere in sight, but the more suspensions come in, the more it's clear that the saga is over, or his time there is over.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I think the one good thing we could say about the Super Bowl, regardless, we're going to have some really big superstar athletes playing in it on both sides. These are very big players in the history of the NFL, Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers playing in it. We'll hear from them coming up here on this segment. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, so we'll put a bow on the AFC and NFC Championship games. First game, not all that exciting. Second game, right down to the wire. In terms of point spreads, as you know, if you bet the favorites, you pretty much won. I mean, that was the story here. I mean, Philly 6-point favorite won by 1 million. Kansas City 2-point favorites. And if Buffalo kicks a couple extra points, he may end up covering that. But you understand why Philly went for it. Let's get to the very latest as to the view of the AFC and NFC title games. Here's our very own Joe Madden with a recap.
Championship weekend is in the books with the Philadelphia Eagles getting the win over the Washington Commanders in our early game. Now, they did really run away with this game, winning at 55-23. Saquon Barkley able to put up 3 rushing touchdowns. When we look at the later game, it was a tighter battle between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, but the Kansas City Chiefs pulled away in that game, winning it by a field goal, 32-29, to take the AFC Championship. Looking at the Super Bowl matchup, yes, it's a repeat of Super Bowl 57. The Kansas City Chiefs have come into this one as the favorite, and that total is starting to be already steamed. Once opening at 48.5, we are seeing 49.5 out there. And when we look at these two teams, in Super Bowl 57, we did see a high-scoring back-and-forth battle with the Kansas City Chiefs winning 38-35. This Chiefs will have their hands full with Saquon Barkley out there, as they did with James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be interesting to see what he's able to bring against that defense. You guys, it's going to be a great Super Bowl. Buckle up. We're in for a couple weeks going over these lines. Back to you, Craig.
All right, thanks very much, Joe. Our coverage in New Orleans here on SportsGrid begins a week from Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. But everyone will be out there next week. And, of course, make sure you keep it locked here to SportsGrid and download the app. You'll have all the information that you need and a lot of fun programming and guests coming as well. All right, now let's get to the Chiefs. And, yes, another Super Bowl for future Hall of Famer Travis Kelce, one of the most popular players, of course, in the NFL for a lot of different reasons. Kelce, super excited after the game, talking to the media about wanting to win for the fans at Arrowhead.
Man, I'll tell you what, man, there's nothing better than playing in front of Arrowhead for an AFC Championship, man. They had that thing rocking, and more than ever, and we needed them more than ever, man. That Buffalo team was as good as we've ever played, and a lot of great competitors over there. I got a lot of respect for those guys, man. They made it hard.
Came right down to the wire, and you guys, the crowd was electric. How does this compare to the other championship game wins you've had here, considering Buffalo was so good and it was such a close game?
Yeah, man, I'm very thankful that I'm here in Kansas City, playing with the guys and then everybody in this building, man. It's a special place, and we feel that every single day, and we just try to take advantage of it and not let it slip out of our hands, man.
It was almost a year ago that you guys called your shot, saying you wanted the 3-peat. What does it mean to now actually get the shot?
You know, it's a new feeling right now, but I'm just excited, man. I'm very happy for the guys that are doing this for the first time, trying to make it everything for them. But I know there's bigger fish to fry, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles down there in New Orleans.
Did you feel like Travis? Did you feel like your presence opened things up for Hollywood, Xavier, Juju?
Listen, we were out there. Everybody was doing their job today. That's why we put up so many points. That's why we scored touchdowns today. 1-5 was playing the best that he's played all year, and that's what you want to see going into your last games or going into the end of the year. Is everybody playing their best ball?
All right, so Kelce heads to the Super Bowl. So will Saquon Barkley. Last year with the Giants, knew all along it was a possibility to get there by going to Philadelphia.
When you signed here in free agency, did you think this would be a possibility to go to the Super Bowl your first year as an Eagle?
Of course, that's why I came here. It's one of the first conversations I had with Howie. That's a conversation I had with my family. And like I said last week, came to Philly to be a part of games like this. And nothing better than a game where you can advance to the Super Bowl. So super excited about that. And it was a team effort, and we'll give shout out to all the guys on our team. And big shout out to Will Shipley. At the end of the game and on special team making a big play, we talking our running back room that, no matter what, running the ball, pass blocking, special teams, we got to be the ones, and he epitomized that today.
And no conversations months ago about this appearance to the Super Bowl. Does it feel everything like you expected it would?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You envision it, but the bad thing, you envision it so much and you dream about it so much that when it happens, it never quite reaches expectations. Kind of expect it. So hopefully, when we get the job done, it might be a little better.
Wonder what Barkley's prop will be in the Super Bowl. Those will be set to come out over the next few days. We'll be right back with more NewsWire after this.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
But is it just a matter of his contract, his age? I mean, usually things like this get fixed pretty quickly, but this one is not fixed, and now it's just super uncomfortable.
The opportunity or the idea of getting another team involved adds more complication to the situation, and it doesn't seem like a resolution is anywhere in sight, but the more suspensions come in, the more it's clear that the saga is over, or his time there is over.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Nobody really likes Monday. You know, it's like a lot of people's least favorite day of the week. So I was hoping Pat Evans was going to pop on our show and brighten it up today with some really good news in the world of sports betting. But at least from what I'm seeing here, well, not so much. Let's bring Pat in from Legal Sports Report. It's Monday, Pat. Like, I get it. Let's just get the bad news out of the way quick, right? That's kind of what we're doing here.
Well, I guess, but geez, that was kind of a sad opening. I thought I was going to bring the joy no matter what. You know, I'm riding high on Michigan State. 12 straight games winning. They're going to win tomorrow. They won this weekend in New York. I'm happy. It's Monday. I'm happy. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy too. But I mean, this first story here is a big bummer, man. Like, we have a lot of viewers that are streaming the show in California, and look, I think that most people understand that the tribes are going to have a major factor as to whether or not sports betting inevitably gets passed in California. And we knew that 2025. It was going to have a hard time happening, but now we're even pushing this back beyond 2026, Pat. I mean, that's a lot. I feel like other states are going to get ahead of them now because of this.
Yeah, I mean, this really all goes back to 2022 when there was a giant ballot proposal from both the tribes for in-person only sportsbooks at the tribal casinos, and then a mobile a whole legalization ballot proposal from multiple sportsbook companies. And basically what happened was the tribe said, wait a second, if the companies want to do this and go online and not involve us, we're going to put a ton of money into it. I think it was $300 million plus that went into this just to basically stop that ballot proposal. And it failed miserably. I think it was less than 20% of votes for the online. And so that kind of said to the companies like, oh, okay, we need to work with the tribes. We need to make this happen. If we're going to get into California, we need to work with the tribes. So basically California is, yes, to the tribal kind of mercy. And what happened was last week in Spain, there was a conference, a panel of tribal leaders in California said, listen, we want to get this. We're excited about it. We know it's coming, but we need to get it right. And they said, it could be on the ballot in 2026, but we're not going to put it on the ballot in 2026 because we need to get this ready. A quote from Catalina Chacon, a board member of the Pechanga Band of Michigan Indians, said, the data is telling us the time is not right. Definitely not 2026. We're looking more like 2028, but it has to include all the tribal communities. And there's more than 100 in California. And so the big ones seem to be on board. They want to get it right, but with 100 tribes, there's a lot of non-gaming tribes that are part of a revenue sharing kind of ecosystem from the gaming. They all need to get on board. That's what the tribal leaders are basically trying to do right now, is get everybody on board, say, hey, let's do this. Let's do it the right way. They also recognize that this is going to have huge implications for any potential online casino movements in California. So they're kind of weighing that too. They just don't want to legalize sports betting and say, oops, we forgot about that component that's coming down the pipeline at who knows when. So yeah, just California is a very kind of lengthy process. Clearly, it might be it's not going to be Utah. I don't think Utah's ever going to legalize, but it'll be probably one of the last, if not the last state that is kind of up for grabs, for lack of a better term, to legalize, because of just the tribal community wanting to make sure they get it right and make sure they're getting the best that they can.
Yeah, I would probably say Texas has got a better shot than California to get going over the next couple of years, which I didn't think would be back when they had that 2022 campaign. All right, so look, a state we don't talk about a ton, North Dakota here. I know that they were looking for some expansion, but as I said, Pat, you're not bringing the great news today. They also had their objective shut down as well. So what happened here?
Yeah, so I mean, sports betting has been in North Dakota since 2021. A couple tribal casinos, in person only, of course. So it's not a big state, big market by any means, but there was a bill introduced at the beginning of the session, not that long ago, of course. We're still in January. So it was among those states that said, hey, we could legalize, we could do this. Really early on, it got a do not recommend from a committee, went to the floor, and overwhelmingly voted against. So it's on the sidelines. North Dakota will remain without statewide sports betting. This was a full online kind of bill to legalize it. And it's interesting because, I mean, yeah, Minnesota doesn't have legalized sports betting. South Dakota has sports betting in their little Deadwood community down in the southwest side of it. Right. So they're not really, Montana, I guess, sort of does. Mm-hmm. So they're not really, bordered by anybody. So it is a really interesting state. Again, not a big population, not a big market. So I don't think the sports betting industry is too upset. They're not in there. So yeah, just another state that had just kind of, I guess, to your point, something positive for the industry, which we haven't had a lot legislatively in the last couple of years. This isn't it. So yeah, North Dakota sitting on the sidelines again this year after, not even a valiant effort, I suppose.
All right. So the story to watch in 2025, definitely the story of the partnership between one of the sports books and the airlines. And, when this broke a couple of weeks ago, we thought, really what's going to happen with this? Really seems like the more I'm reading, the more that the airlines would like to get sports betting in the air going. And I think it's going to take some time because, again, you're flying over different states. They have different legal and not legal places that you can do it. It almost, Pat, reminds me of these cruises where you used to, be able to bet where you took offshore and then you could bet all you wanted. And then as soon as you came back, you couldn't bet anymore. It reminds me a little bit of this too. And I wonder what ends up happening with this.
Yeah. So, here we have a bill in Connecticut that was filed, and I think it is a little prematurely because of some things I'll get into in a second. But basically this bill was filed, I think probably a little bit in response to the DraftKings and Delta partnership, which we'll talk about kind of the little details in a minute. But basically what it does was any flight originating or ending in Connecticut borders, you can bet. But the problem with that is betting on airplanes is illegal federally. Due to some old acts. So I don't even know if this could supersede that. That would probably, I don't know if anybody would even care to take it in court. It probably just wouldn't be offered by the sports books because they want to try to stay on the up and up in all their other markets. So we'll see what happens there. What's interesting is the DraftKings Delta announcement. We still don't know a ton about it. It was announced by the Delta CEO at CES. It sounds like no real gambling, real money gambling, just kind of games would be implemented. How you could in their seatback or even the app seatback entertainment councils, they have all sorts of games you can play, poker and whatever. It's not for real money. I think that's kind of what they're toying at right now. U.S. airspace is a whole lot different than international waters. I think I do like your analogy, but it is a little different. And cross-border sports betting is a little problematic, I think, in that sense as well at the federal level. Right. So, yeah, a lot of weird kind of loopholes to get. It is interesting to see a state lawmaker already saying, hey, this is kind of fun. Let's try to see if we can get a little bit more tax money out of this, because I think 1% of that revenue would go to public education in Connecticut. So it is an interesting bill. We'll see if it moves at all. But of course, to your point, we have a lot more to see how sports betting in the skies develops, if at all. I think we could certainly see other partnerships emerge between sportsbooks and airlines. Much like we saw in the early days, the sportsbook partnerships with sports teams. This is still a potentially good consumer acquisition point.
Yeah, it could be, and maybe set up for the future. It's a great point, Pat. Maybe not for now, but just to get something rolling to see what happens. That seems like the world of sports betting lately. Pat, thanks again for coming on NewsWire and ending on a cheery note, I may add, too. Thanks again.
Thanks as always, Craig.
All right, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. Coming up next, we got Adam Kaufman. He'll join us. We'll recap everything that happened in the AFC and NFC Championship game. And just a reminder, folks, just because football is coming to an end, it does not mean sports do not stop and sports betting does not stop. We got constant coverage here. Before you know it, it'll be the NCAA tournament, which is like our mini Super Bowl here at SportsGrid. The NBA season is heating up. We got the All-Star game, NHL as well. So keep it locked right here, 24/7 to SportsGrid, giving you the edge on sports betting. And we'll be back with Adam Kaufman next. Don't go away.
Jimmy Butler has spread his cancer all over the Heat, and he has ruined their season. I do believe they'll never recover from this disastrous guy that is, purged on them. I mean, he's ruined. Like, they don't matter anymore at all. Like, I watched them play last night. They sucked.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Adam Kaufman joins us. He was on the air this weekend watching the games play out in the NFC Championship first and then the AFC Championship. And, Adam, especially that second game really gave us a lot of fun in the end. For some people, not the outcome that they were looking for, but needless to say, the excitement was definitely there.
Well, definitely not the outcome I was looking for, either as a consumer or my wallet. And my condolences to your Commanders as well. I mean, that's what I wanted. I wanted Bills, Commanders. That is the Super Bowl I was looking for. Even Bills, Eagles would have been okay, because it's not like the Eagles are there literally every year. But instead, what we have, obviously, is a matchup of two teams, Chiefs, Eagles, that were there only 2 years ago. I'm not looking forward to this game. I think most people in the country outside of those two fan bases are not looking forward to this game. We just did this. Let's give us something a little bit new. But you're right. While the Commanders, unfortunately and honestly, shockingly, never even really put up a fight against the Eagles, the Bills were right there. They were there at the end. It was okay. They rallied. They scored that touchdown late. There's an opportunity. Will it go to overtime? Couple of calls you could argue maybe didn't quite swing their way. That 4th and short rush that, maybe it was a bad spot, maybe not. I'm not going to put yesterday's loss for Buffalo on the officials. I know a lot of people, just because of the sort of Kansas City stigma, would like to do that. I'm not going to go there. I was wrong, ultimately. I thought, Craig, that the Bills are a better offense, which, of course, statistically, they are. They were putting up 30-plus points on the regular throughout the season. The Chiefs only scored more than 30 0 times. Zero times until yesterday. 32 was what they put up yesterday, had never exceeded 30. So I didn't think they were capable of winning a shootout. And that's exactly what we basically got, was a shootout in Kansas City, and Patrick Mahomes, they prevail again. And the overwhelming lesson here, and people need to remember it, we're going to harp on it plenty over the next 2 weeks. Man, no matter who you're rooting for, it is awfully difficult to wager, to put your hard-earned money against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and again, another point spread that is 1.5 going into the Super Bowl. But look, certainly in the end, it all comes down to one play. I don't think you should beat yourself up about it, or anybody really should. I mean, a great defensive call, rushing guys from the outside. Allen beats it, throws it up in the air. Receiver, tight end drops it. Like, the margins are just so slim in games like these. Sure. I just, to me, coin flipping away for that game. I mean, at any point did you feel you were on the right side until inevitably the very end? Probably not. Let's take a look at the Eagles and Commanders here for a minute. Yeah, that was the one that hurt me. I obviously wanted Washington not just to cover, but to win. It was not particularly close. Their defense probably needs some upgrades in the offseason. 55 points, and that was not something that I saw coming here at all. They went over by themselves in not just the team total, but the game total as well. Hurts over his prop. A.J. Brown was the big one that I missed on. I just did not think that he was going to be a factor based on what we saw the entire postseason and the end of the season, but he flew over his total. Devonta Smith under, Goddard over, and of course the Eagles team total over. So to me, Brown was the surprise, because we had been playing that card over and over again. And Adam, I was not willing to do that one more time this week.
Yeah, I mean, I said it on a couple of shows. I may have even said it to you last week. The number got too low. I sat it out ultimately, but I was never going to play the under on 60.5 yards for a guy like A.J. Brown. The play was either over or stay away. And, I saw some people laddering him up even. And obviously he didn't hit that full ladder, but getting up to, as you said, 90 yards. It just, at some point in time, he was going to get off the milk carton and become a little bit more of a factor. And couple that with, and I know it didn't look this way at the beginning, with first play from scrimmage for Saquon Barkley breaking off a 60-yard touchdown run. If the Commanders were going to attempt to kind of sell out to take Saquon out and limit him, and of course, they didn't stop him, but maybe compared to recent games and expectation and book expectations, he was just ever so slightly, I put limited in quote fingers. Other guys, whether it was Brown, Smith, Goddard, opportunity was going to be there with Jalen Hurts throwing the football. And so that's what we saw. But look, even the most devout Eagles fan could not have seen this game coming. And I don't mean Philadelphia winning. There were plenty of people on that side. Philadelphia covering, sure. Plenty of people had that too. But like you said, exceeding the total by themselves, blowing out a Commanders team by 30 points, a team that, generally had this reputation for, even if it doesn't win, staying close, hanging around, not going away, being pesky, like team of destiny kind of stuff. for them to lose the way they did. I mean, look, and nobody should build parlays the way I build parlays. That is a very important lesson out there. But I had this builder where I took a couple of these, absurd, like I had Commanders plus 28.5. I had under, I went up as high as I could and I took the under 77.5. We saw the Commanders lose by more than 28 points. We saw 78 points in this game. I'm still shocked. Like, I was tossing and turning last night. How did I lose a bet that way? It is astounding, the performance that the Eagles put on both sides of the ball and the way that game played out. And you could do the whole Commanders not quite ready for prime time, sort of their season caught. No, it wasn't that. It was a bad day. It's a great team. It's going to be a great team going forward. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. Just on one particular day, the Eagles were too much. And I don't know how you can look at yesterday, NFC game or AFC game, and now look at a sub 50 total in the Super Bowl and say, I'm definitely taking the under in that one. Because, both those teams, both games skied over the over yesterday, and now you're getting them in a dome.
Yeah, the total's 49.5 in the Super Bowl, and my guess is you're probably right. Probably gets to 50. I don't know. Usually these lines are super tight, even with the initial line coming out last night. Haven't seen much movement. Chiefs minus 1.5. So, Adam, we got 2 weeks to sort of dive in and make this pick. But it's kind of funny is after watching the Chiefs, I don't know how you back Philadelphia. I guess maybe I would consider it just to play contrarian, but I just don't know a lot of people that will.
Again, it comes back to, and we'll recite them throughout these next 2 weeks, all the different Patrick Mahomes ATS stats as an underdog or as a field goal or less favorite. The guy he's a cover machine. He wins these games. He's going for 3 straight. How do you bet against him?
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time, and I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because Scotty, he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP in the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP in the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
They have a lot of hopes, and they thought last year they were turning the corner. Even early this year, they start turning the corner a little, and then you lose 13 games in a row.
Edmonton chipped away, got a late goal, won the game 4-3. I felt like they dominated the third period. They moved the puck on that power play. It was an exceptional hockey game. It went over the total.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. ESPN reporting this morning that offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, Todd Monken, is set to sign a contract extension. Of course, Baltimore had a great season, came a few plays short to get to the AFC Championship, but needless to say, offensively, Derrick Henry And Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, that great offensive line. Ravens are in really good shape, and they'll keep it going with Todd Monken. All right, as we close out, we will talk a little bit about the Australian Open champion and also the lookalike to Patrick Mahomes shows up in the locker room. I don't know how that happened. And what are they thinking in New York at the Empire State Building? I'm not entirely sure. Time now for some last licks. You know, a lot of talk in men's tennis these days. Djokovic still is like the main draw. It's probably fair to say everybody wants to know what he's going to do and how is he going to play. And I know he withdrew early from his match last week. But don't look now, but Jannik Sinner wins the Australian Open. This guy is becoming one of the top athletes in the world. He's the number one player currently ranked on the tour. And he ends up winning the Australian Open yesterday. Certainly a tennis season well underway. We're going to have some great fun with Wimbledon and the U.S. Open and all the other great tournaments that are going on. I know, some of this gets buried a little bit, let's be honest, because the football's still going on. But Jannik Sinner is a 2025 name to watch for sure. Some people think that he could challenge the Grand Slam this year as well. He's just a fantastic player who just keeps dominating. And when the number one player in the world wins the number one the first tournament of 2025, it's definitely something to watch. So we'll keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, in the Kansas City Chiefs locker room yesterday, some fun as a player that we did not expect showed up. And a lot of people just compare him to Patrick Mahomes because he looks like Patrick Mahomes. That is Dylan Raiola. He was in the Chiefs locker room. For those of you who are unfamiliar, he's the quarterback at the University of Nebraska and was actually celebrating with the Chiefs after the win. Now, in the video that I saw and some of the pictures that ensued, it seems like he's dialed it back a little bit from his exact looking like Patrick Mahomes, but somehow he ended up in there. And he's talked about how he has emulated him in the past. And somebody ended up giving him a pass to go into the locker room afterwards. So good for him. He's in there, as you can see there. Yes, clear picture. Still, to me, does strikingly look like Mahomes, but he looked a lot more like him last year than this year. Maybe just trying to emulate a guy on the field doesn't mean you necessarily have to look exactly like him with haircut and everything else. All right, now this is a strange one that we end the show on here because, from what I understand, when teams do well in New York, they light up the Empire State Building, and sometimes they honor different things with changing the colors there. But this is one that is a little peculiar to me because this is not a team from New York or New Jersey or Brooklyn or Queens. Very, very bizarre. So the Philadelphia Eagles end up winning the NFC Championship, and I know that Philadelphia is very close to New York, but not close enough for me to believe that the Empire State Building was lit up green for the Eagles winning the NFC Championship yesterday. A lot of people are taking exception to this, as they always do, on social media. So I guess we have to ask ourselves, what is the cutoff here? Is it an amount of miles? Is it a state-by-state situation? Like, I don't recall the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowl and then it being lit up in Patriots colors. I don't know. I really don't know. But for my money, if the Giants or Jets are playing in the Super Bowl, fair enough. If the Brooklyn Nets get to the Super Bowl, fair enough. Make it black or white or whatever it is. But the Philadelphia Eagles, a rival in the same division as the New York Giants, who made that decision? I have a feeling whoever made that decision may be regretting that one in the coming days. But needless to say, don't go on to social media and read the comments here because, like everything else, very negative and you'll be very upset. All right, that'll do it for our show today. Thanks again to Adam Kaufman for coming on. And, of course, thanks to Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report and Vinnie Iyer from Sporting News. For those of you sticking around, Smiley Kaufman's up next at noon. If not, check back at 3 o'clock Eastern because Scott Burrell is ready to go coast to coast with all of your live updates for everything happening in college hoops tonight, Monday. Always a big night, along with some NBA and NHL action. And then if Gabe is around tonight, my gosh, Gabe is on a little bit of a rage tweeting here with the Bills losing. He's got you covered tonight, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Make sure you catch that show as well. Now, we'll be back here for our next show tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. It is our next edition of NewsWire, and all week long, and definitely for the next 2 weeks, we have you covered for everything happening at the Super Bowl. If you want to learn more about our Super Bowl coverage and some brand new shows that we have coming your way immediately after the 9th, download the SportsGrid app. Just take out your phone, scan that QR code. It's available for both iOS and Android. It is the SportsGrid app, news, notes, information, picks against the spread, and all of your fantastic hosts here on our network. Thanks again to Luke, and for my producer Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. for our next edition of